Hey folks, welcome back to the shop. And today we have this 1974 Ironhead XLH chopper on the lift that I picked up for a song and dance not long ago. And it's time to get it road worthy. It is not at the moment. Quite a bit we got to do because I'm not sitting on these things. And if I do, I'll shed some pounds real quick in the backside. Some front end work we got to do, some wiring we got to do, some things I've already just kind of fiddled with just to get it running. But let's walk through it, tell you a little bit about the bike. Welcome back to Butler Customs Motorcycle Shop. So this is a 1974 XLH. The 74s were the last year for the right side shift. I think in 75 and 76 they started making linkages that put it over there on the normal side for us here in America. And then in 78 or 77 they just started putting the shifters on the left side. Why did they put it on the right side? Well, at the time, they were competing. This motor was designed to compete with British bikes, the Nortons and the Triumphs and things like that. All the British bikes had this setup. So Harley decided to compete with them and put it on that side. Not many folks here in America like that. But this is the last year of that. I don't know if you'll ever get used to that after you've ridden all your life with the brake on the right side and the shifter on the left. Heard of so many people going to shift and hitting the brake. Now, a lot of people say, well, the Ironhead or the Sportster series is the longest running motor Harley ever made, and I believe that to be true. Now, Sportster started off in 57. Now, you might see a bike that's older than that that looks like a Sportster, but that is actually a Model K. And the Model K, they use kind of that platform to engineer this motor called a Sportster. Now, of course, the old Sportsters are called Ironheads because of these cast iron heads. They look quite a bit like the shovel heads. So the big difference, of course, is the lower casing in it. It is a one piece. This does have the electric start, not a kick start. But some of the wiring and stuff is just kind of home built that we'll have to look at. It did come with a seat and a fender. However, the seat that was on this was terrible. It was a really, really small seat. They had bent the tabs for the springs way back to get this to fit. And I sat on it and it is just way uncomfortable. However, on the Honda Chopper, it came with a seat. We replaced that with a King Queen, but it came with this nice big wider seat. Again, looks like kind of homemade, but it's already got the provisions here for rivets, or if I wanted to use those screws, I'll probably go with rivets because they sit a little closer. And I just kind of lined it up and it fits in here perfect. So I'm going to use this seat. I'm probably going to take all of these screws and nuts out and probably just do some nice brass rivets or copper rivets around it. We're going to leather this. So I'm going to do a little small pad. I'm going to do a thick leather that goes over it. I'm going to do some designs in the leather. So we'll be doing a little bit of leather work. I haven't done that in a while, and I used to do quite a bit of leather work. So we're going to definitely be doing that. So that's a project. We got a little U-clamp with a spacer welded to it, and then the bolt to slide through here. So we gotta do a little bit of fabrication there. Fender styles, we're gonna let you pick. We got a short stubby fender. We got one that comes back and kind of fishtails up. I'm gonna keep the solo seat. I'm not gonna put a rear seat on it. There's really no provisions on here for the rear pegs anyway. So it's just going to be a solo bobber chopper kind of style. I think personally all raked out choppers look best with the king queen seat, but a lot of folks like the bobber style rear end and the chopper front end. Some wiring we're going to have to just address instantly. This is just like a tractor key that you get at a parts store, a tractor ignition. We're going to have to move that. It is up against the frame and the wires are dangerously close to this frame. Also, this bike I notice is not charging. I'm hoping the reason for that is that they have used these metal straps with rubber behind the straps to hold this rectifier on, and these rectifiers have to be grounded really good. So I'm hoping that the issue of not charging is just this not being grounded. It does have the kit on it that takes away the generator, makes this shorter. This spins. It's only got the 2 wires coming out that goes into the rectifier, and then the rectifier feeding back. I've not heard good things about those kits that people would install. I've heard they fail quite often. If we have to, we'll go back to the traditional generator with the poles, and they're dependable. They might not look as cool, but they're very dependable. Also on the front end, we have some issues. Just like on the Honda Chopper. This front end, the wheel is like this. And I believe it's due to the fact of something up here in this Springer setup. This looks to be just a cheap aftermarket Springer, and it looks like they have just painted it black, because I have scraped some away and it looks like it's chromed underneath. But on this side, I can run my finger in here on this side. On the other side, I cannot. So this side is smashed in, this side is out where it should be. So the problem is somewhere up in this adjustment, or these rods bent. And if you look, okay, I'm holding the camera sort of level. This side is higher up than that side. So it might be, it just needs some adjustment. Now, I did do a little bit of work already, and in doing that, it had an issue with running. It was not getting spark, so the plugs were fouled out bad. So I replaced those. I did pull the points cover off, and it is upgraded to an electronic ignition, a digital ignition. So that was good to see. With it not charging back, the battery would get low, and they would try to crank it, no spark or low spark, and that would just foul out the plugs. So I threw new plugs in, and the fuel, it was not feeding correctly. Normally this inlet on the carb is pointing down. The fuel line from the petcock comes off and loops down and around. But with the gravity feed, it was not enough pressure, I guess, to get up in there and fill the bowl. So I just ran a new line over the top of the carburetor, put an inline filter in so I could see the fuel flow, and then turn the inlet up. That helped tremendously. I had the air breather off because it come with a big, I don't know, looks like it goes on a car. It was just massive. And when you sat on the bike, it was in the way. Prism Supply Company, don't know what that is, but I will not be reusing this. Huge filter, and I just don't like how it looked on the bike. I'm going to go with either the honeycomb, like I run on my pan head. I'll show you that. I like the honeycombs. They look nice. I like them. They got the brass mesh inside. It's easy to take out and clean out. But I found a even smaller one that's just kind of like a can size, small, like almost like a dip can size that fits on there. It's chrome, it's flush. I think that'll be a lot better for going down the road on. These pipes, I think, are chrome underneath. There. Clean all this off. They spray painted the heads. They spray painted the push rod covers, and as you can see, they are chrome as well. So basically just a lot of cleaning up to be done. Now, we're blessed where I live that we've got some great talented guys in the automotive and motorcycle business that do painting, pinstriping. So my friend Chase Spears, the pinstriper, is going to come up. I'm going to introduce you to him, and he's going to talk about his plans for getting rid of this fire engine red. And he's going to go with an old school. I think he's going to do scallops and layers and I mean, it's going to be awesome. So we're definitely going to transform this bike into something really nice to take down the road, and even to maybe some shows, local shows. So where do we start, guys? Let's start with electricals. I want to get this bike at least running. I'll fire it up for you and let you hear it. Here's my issue with it running. I know it's not charging back, but I can put a full charge on it, and even with it running, it just doesn't sound right. It doesn't have that good lop. It sounds like, I don't know, it just sounds like the timing is off, but I'll let you hear it and see what you think about it. And then we'll dig into at least getting it to charge back. I just don't like the sound of it. I've played with the digital thing in there, and that didn't seem to help. I don't know if the timing is not right on it. I've not went through any of that yet. So let's start there. Let's start it up. All right, we've got the key in. I did put a battery charger on it just so it'll stay charging while we're running it. Now the choke on these is opposite of what you'd think. In is choked, out is not choked. I know, weird, but let's give it a start. And it's a tractor ignition, so you got to turn it like a car. All right, we got headlights. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like it's got a, I think it would idle great and give a nice smooth ride, but it sounds like almost like the ignition is kind of cutting out sometimes. Maybe it's just my ears, but it just doesn't sound smooth. It sounds like it's almost about to die. I know we're getting fuel flow. I can see that. I did pull the carburetors and clean them all. When I bought it, I couldn't help but fiddle with it the day I bought it. I should have shot a video and I didn't, and I got to learn more patience because I want to bring you guys along to see this. Let's start with the charging. Now on these kits, they're different birds than the generators. So we will have to pull these two lines here that go up to the rotor and then test what's coming out of these. Hopefully they're good. Then we can test our regulator, but I'm thinking with this not being grounded, that's going to be our issue. So maybe it would be wise to start with grounding this first and see if that just fixes the issue. Then we can start it and put a multimeter on the battery and see what it does. So let's start there. I'm going to take these rubber grommet things off. I don't know why they have it up here sideways. I would like to square it up, but maybe it's because of where the frame rides, so we'll have to figure something out to go here. So here's what I did. I disconnected the rectifier from this frame with the metal clips and then this on it. There was no way that was being grounded. So let's test for the ground and just ground the rectifier out good. That'll tell us if that solved our issue. So So what I did is I just got some jumper cables from a car, clamped them on to the rectifier. The rectifier is plugged in. I come over here and hook the clamp to the ground. So now I know that the rectifier's indeed got a very good ground. We've got our multimeter out here. I've got it hooked up to the 2 terminals. We will turn it on. All right, we got 12.8 right now. So what we're looking for when we crank it is that while it's running, anything above 12.8, that tells us the battery is charging back and holding a charge and keeping that charge. So let me turn the key on and fire it up. There you go, guys. That was all of the issue. When they installed this rectifier, they did not properly ground the rectifier. Simple fix. I'm glad we checked that first before going through all the diagnosis of how much is the stator putting out and is the rectifier going back, all that stuff. Simply solved by jumper cables. Who would have thought? Now, when I see that this has been done, that whoever installed this did not realize the rectifier has to be grounded out, I'm now concerned about all the other wiring. What's going on? I have noticed that these mechanical relays, they're all taped up so they don't ground out and hit nothing. I am going to change these out to fuses. I know the mechanical relays, they do great. If you're out stranded, you just let it cool down, let it close back, boom, they reset. With fuses, they pop. You have to have a fuse to go back in there or wire them straight together. But if the fuse pop, there's an issue and you don't want to wire them straight together, you'll burn the bike down. So what? Do we replace them with fuses? Do we not? I know I'm going to be cleaning the wiring up at least. And I may even make some little covers that go behind, probably behind the nut here. Oh, what is that? I'm losing all kinds of screws and bolts. The nut here, and then it's a little cover that goes down, follows this frame brace here. And then that way I can hide all of this behind that. And it still be on top of the frame, on top of the fender, but behind all this. You won't see any of this. We also need a strap for the battery, I was noticing, and the hot is awfully close to the top tube of the frame. Well, maybe not so close, but you can tell by this wire right here that this has been hitting up here. And because of hitting a bump and the battery jumping up, hitting this, and if that wasn't there, it would have hit the frame and ground it out. So I don't like that. We'll have to make a strap to strap this down good so that it doesn't jump up. Or yeah, you could put a rubber clamp around this to keep that from hitting, but if we hit a bad bump and the battery jumps out the side, that wouldn't be good. I did notice now that the rectifier is doing its rectifying and the battery is now charging, that there's now a pop that wasn't there before. So I'm still thinking there's something fishy going on with the timing that we've not got right, that we've got to fix. But hey, I'm happy. We don't have to do any rewiring of that rectifier. Now you might be asking, what in the world is this wire? It's just hanging out there. Well, if you follow it down, it goes to the oil sensor right here. oil pump pressure or oil pressure. So this does not have an oil pressure gauge on it. We will probably be installing a manual one just so you can see it. But on these old Ironheads, if they're running, you got oil pressure. Now I did notice that while the bike was sitting here, I had to move it, and it was parked here about maybe a week. I do have an oil leak. It is coming out of the back and weeping out right here. And oh, I just saw it drip. Where's it coming from? Okay, it's dripping from right there. Okay, so it looks like it's dripping out of the starter where the starter goes in. So that's great, because guess what? That's an easy fix. We can just take the starter out, put a gasket in there, put the starter back. I'm not sure on these years if they had a gasket for the starter or if they had an O-ring. I'm not sure. We'll find it out when we pull it out. I wouldn't think it'd be leaking from there, but that's where it's coming from. But I'm glad I saw that just now. All right, well, now that it's charging, we are good. We got to definitely do something about the front. Unlike the Honda Chopper, that one side of the tire had been wore down from it not being even, this is a brand new tire. It's still got the knobs on it. So I don't know if the old tire was wore like that from where it's crooked, or, and they just replaced it, or if there's not, if, you know, it wasn't out of adjustment that bad before. I'm not sure. So now, how do we ground this rectifier? Well, I've been looking at it. I know now why they turned it crooked, to get the brackets to fit in there. Because if you fit it like this, there's nothing really to put to it. Can we weld it to it? Don't do that. We got to work something else out to get it to sit. Now, I did look up here. Haha, guess what? There's holes here. Do they match up with the rectifier? No, they don't. But I could get at least one good ground in it and just hang it down from that. So all we'd have to do is just extend the wires out down here, bring the rectifier up here, and mount it to that one bolt. Then once we do that, the rectifier would kind of hang down, and we might then could bracket it to the side there. I don't know. I would like it to be kind of around here. We wouldn't have to extend any wires right down here, but with the way this frame is, now I could, hey, I could do that. No, I want it away from that pipe. What about that down there? I could run it off this cross member here, take some paint off there, make sure it's got a good ground, and ground it right there. That's a great idea. Thank you for thinking about that. That's where I'm going to put that. So let's get that on. Well, you're not going to believe this, but you got to, because I'm telling you the truth. This crossover bar right here that holds these forward, they're not controls, they're just kind of footrests, foot pegs. I cleaned that off around the tube. I drilled off the holes in the rectifier, and I just ran a metal clamp through there, through this rectifier, and then on the bottom there's another crossover here that goes right across, and it lined up perfectly. So I know it's not in there flush, but it's in there, it's grounded, it's a whole lot better. Now let's fire the bike up and make sure that was a good permanent fix for us. that indeed was the fix. I'm so happy we can check number one issue off of our list. Now, since fixing that, I don't know if you've heard or not, but now we have a pop. So there is fuel being burned up in the exhaust. So we got to do some tweaking. I still think this timing is wonky. Maybe it was where it wasn't charging. They were trying to fiddle with it. I'm not sure. Now, as far as fuel flow, most guys get worried when these don't fill all the way up, especially gravity fed. However, and there's no vacuum on this petcock either. However, they will only pull fuel. Fuel will only flow as the floats release the needle, and then more fuel can come in. So sometimes all you'll see is like a trickle of gas. This carburetor is not setting like this, it's setting like this because of the front end. Now, a lot of folks have said, well, are you going to rake the neck and bring it out to bring this down level? No. Here's why. People like this. They like that 60s, 70s frame up kind of ride. So that's how I'm going to keep it. And this is going to make somebody a really good bike once we can kind of get it road worthy and ready to run. So let's pull the points plate off, make some marks on where it's set at now, start the bike, and then see if that just fine tuning it helps. I did notice an exhaust leak. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, the main reason this bike would not fire was not primarily because of the battery not charging. However, that didn't help. But there was a massive intake leak. And I happen to have some new boots here from an Ironhead I worked on probably 3 years ago that didn't need that. So I put the new intake boots on. That solved the problem of the massive air leak and it running super lean. So I'm wondering if now that I fixed that intake leak, if the timing is just off. I wonder if they monkeyed with the timing to try to get it to run, didn't realizing it had a massive air intake leak. Now the intake leak was not due to a failed gasket. It was due to failed installation. So they did not put this clamp on center and it boogered up the gasket and split the gasket. Let's pull this points cover off and let's fiddle with the timing. See if we can get it sounding a little bit better. Now let's get this points plate off. I think the last time I was in here, I had marked the timing plate. So those marks should still be there. Okay, take the cover off. Yes, so indeed I did. All right, I got these loose. I'm going to actually tighten them back now. I'm going to start the bike first. I'll just tighten one. Okay, I'm happy with that. Sounds a whole lot better. It's a whole lot smoother. It's got a good lope to it. Now, words of caution, especially on old bikes. You can get old bikes like my Panhead to sound like they're about to die every rotation. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Even lower than the potato. But that is terrible. That is terrible on your rods, piston rods, your flywheel, everything lower. It's so bad on them. So this bike will never run that low as long as it's here. And when I'm riding the bike and then I pull up to a stop, I'm always revving. I hardly ever just let it go and down to nothing because of that. So even if it's got a low idle, I'll still kind of womp 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 while I'm at a red light. And if people get upset at that, like we're trying to show off or something, but actually we're just trying to keep our old bikes running and not loping so low. But hey guys, so far this is working out. Now knock on wood. But so far we've fixed quite a bit. I'm still worried about this. I know nothing about it. I don't know even who made it. I don't know. Best I could look up by the design that these things set in here. I think it's a Columbus. And back in the, I guess, 70s? I don't know. So I'm going to try to take these apart. I have no idea what I'm doing. But can we figure it out? I hope so. Now common sense tells me, which isn't quite so common in today's time, that I have to keep pressure on this spring here in order to take this off. Maybe not. I don't know. I guess we'll find out though. Because I want to pull all this apart. I want to pull these springs out. If this rod's bent, that would explain this being out, or if this rod's bent in, that would explain it. Maybe there's bushings up inside here that are wore out and it's causing the spring to do this or the other side to do that. I don't know. We'll find out. I think as of right now, because Spears is on vacation, so it's going to be a minute before he comes up and talks to us about what his plans are with the paint. So in the meantime, I'm not going to fiddle with the fender. See what I did there? Fiddle with fender. What I want to do is wait on Spears, the pinstriper, to come up, because he says he's got a couple fenders he could bring up. We could mock up, see how they look. I'm going to go ahead and show you what it come with and show you maybe what might look even better on it. All right, I got several fenders here in the shop. I got a couple that are fiberglass, but I don't want to run fiberglass on this. I've got 3 metal ones. I've got one that's not been cut yet. This is the one that came on it. And it used to set about right here, which I thought looked goofy, especially with a bobber seat. And it had fell down. The sissy bar had broken. It had fell down on this and burned right through that paint. If anybody was sitting back there, Lord help them, they had a hot tamale on their hands. So what I did was cut this fender, and I can bring it in here. Now these bolts for the spring will come out and this will tuck up in a little closer, but we can run a fender like that, which I think don't look too bad. And I got you zoomed out there so you can kind of see the whole feel of the bike. Now I also have this fender that was actually the front fender that I cut in half for somebody, and I can use the back of this, chop off, of course, this underneath here. I can use that tuck it down, yeah, about like there. That'll give me the clearance for the shocks. So I can do that. I think that, you know, time it's painted and everything, I think that might look the best. We don't have to worry about rear lights because we have this that I've got to tighten, but it does work. I don't think I'm going to go back with a sissy bar because if I do, it's a bobber. I don't think a sissy bar would look good, and it might tempt to throw somebody on the back there to get them home, and the same thing is going to happen. So I think I'm going to nix the sissy bar idea and just go with a short fender. Now I do have a Road King fender, I believe. No. A Softail fender here that we could do some modifying on and make it a little shorter and tucked in. Now this one has more of a fishtail swoop up than this one here. So you can see the difference in the tails there. I really like the swoop. I really like the swoop of this. I think if we measure right and cut right, we could even bring it on around a little bit more because it swoops out so much, and it'd be a full fender. Then we could run sissy bars and we could do a king and queen seat. But like I said, I'm going to wait on Spears to come up, and he's going to bring some fenders. He saw the bike on one of my just short shop update videos and said, man, I want to be a part of that. I want to come up. I got some fenders. He has all kinds of ideas. So we're just going to let him have at the paint. Whatever you want to do, whatever color you want to do, as long as it's not green, because green bikes, face it, they're cursed. They're unlucky. Don't ride a green bike. They'll go down on you every time. And let's not do hot pink. We fixed our charging issue. I think we got the timing set kind of okay. All that's really left on this, besides, you know, waiting on plans for the fender and the paint and stuff, we're not going to hardtail it unless I just run up on a deal of a frame. I think what's next, I've been putting it off, is the front end. I learned on the Honda Chopper. It taught me some things. Always check your front end on chopper bikes. And don't try to go down the road if it looks wonky. And this one certainly does. So let's dig into taking this front end apart. I have no clue what I'm doing. Then after we get that broken or fixed, we're going to check the neck bearings and all that, and we're going to bend these bars. I can't let this roll out of here with the big ape hangers and not bring them in and down to rabbit ears. If you're going to lean the frame back like this, you got to have rabbit ears so you can set back. So we're going to do that. Then it's cleaning up everything. I did notice a rear exhaust leak. We'll fix that. Clean all this spray paint off. Get it chromed again. If that front end turns out to be chrome, it's going to look good. So I want to get the springs, all the paint off of them. I want to strip the paint off these bars. We got to do stops, bar stops, because they've got these handlebars taped up so they don't slap the side of the tank. But you don't want really your handlebars to be able to turn all the way. If you get into a turn or you hit a little bit of a gravel and you're turning and your bike starts to slip on you, you want those tabs there to stop that from going all the way over and you dumping over the top of the bike. Is that rain? Excuse me, just a minute. Oh, well, that little rain shower felt so good. It's so hot in here. All right, front end time. What are we doing? How do we do it? I guess we'll just try to use common sense and figure it out ourselves. Hopefully get it straight. Good news is it's got a brand new tire on it. That's great. We just gotta get the Springer thing springing properly. I'm just putting off that rear end, that front end, mainly because I don't know a thing about it. And my fear is I go to pull something, a nut off or something, and a spring shoot through the ceiling, and then I can't get it back on, and I don't know what I'm doing. Well, I couldn't leave well enough alone. I just had to bite the bullet and get into the front end. Strapped the rear down, got another jack, went up on the front, took the tire off, and I'm glad I did. This axle is dry as a bone. Wheel bearings are good, thank goodness. But this axle is so dry. So I said, how do these come off? I don't know. Let's put an impact on it. So I did. I originally tried to hold these and then try to screw this off. But I'm like, well, maybe they're made into it. I couldn't see a washer or anything in there. So maybe they're made in. So I just kept unscrewing and boop, they popped up. How am I going to get it back? I have no idea. But we'll figure something out. So in unscrewing the top, it actually unscrewed the whole shaft from the bottom down here. And as I was unscrewing them, I discovered there are pieces of bushings that are in this. So I suspect our issue was these bushings. I guess they're maybe like handlebar bushings. They're just blown. I don't know if you can tell or not, but inside that, it's broken. It's all just wore down. So I'll put these on their respective sides. I'll pull this one out. Yeah, so here's the right side. That's what I was talking about, like a sleeve on it. So it was shot. And then down in here, okay, they're just metal. They're just metal. There's part of the plastic inside there. We can just pull these out now. Oh, gosh, I'll never be able to put that back together. Okay, let's see. Let's see, okay, here's this. All right, this set up in here. All right. Had an inner spring and an outer spring that set up in there. Okay. Not too complicated now that I see it. And then this side here should come out just like that, and this as well. Okay, we'll set those over there. Get that spring out. There's the plastic piece there that had disintegrated. And you can see where it had been, the shaft had been rubbing against that. There in turn drawing this in. Okay, oh, those are actually set pretty good. Good tension on them. And then that'll set right there. Okay, so I think that was our problem, was those metal or those rubber sleeve things. And this was all messed up. I hope they make these, so I don't know. Let me do some Googling and try to figure out if they make these or not. If they do, we can order a kit and then just, I guess, assemble it back together once I clean the springs up. I'm thinking they're chrome. And then these, they're metal, but it looks like you can put new ones in. And see that right there? See that groove, that cut? You see that, how it's wallered out on that side? That's where it was pressed in. So that was our problem. Those bushings failed, these failed. So that's good. We don't really even have to take all this off unless we need to get everything back, get the springs back. So let me look for parts for this. We'll clean the threads up for this. We'll clean all this up because we're going to strip it off anyway. And look what I found. Look, 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 look. Chrome. So this was indeed chromed. Why did they paint it black? Well, maybe just for the looks, or maybe to cover up some flaking in the chrome. But regardless, we're going to get this back to chrome. I think it'll look a lot better. So we need to keep disassembling. Take the neck off now that all this is apart. Actually, I'll come down here and take these apart so I can take this off and separate it. Then we can take the top triple tree off, bring the neck out. We'll probably just go ahead and replace those because it's way loose. This neck is way too loose. So we'll check the bearings. It doesn't feel like it's catching or anything. I think it's just loose. So maybe the bearings are good. But I want to go ahead and cool off, and then we'll come out tonight, keep stripping things down. But now at least we found the issue. While I'm inside cooling off, I'll check on parts for these. I don't know. We might have to make our own. I don't see how they come out. Looks like they're pressed in. But I don't see like a clip that holds them in or anything. All right, let me do some studying. Boy, are we into it now. Goodness gracious. Where do I start? Okay, I've been doing a lot of dismantling, but I don't know if I'm fixing anything. Let's start with the forks or the springer. All right, so the springer was indeed chrome underneath at one point in its life. So it's no longer shiny chrome. It's got pitting and stuff in it. I have not cleaned all the paint off, but let me flip this over for you. So there's some chrome left on it. There's some pitting there, so I can see why they painted it. Another reason I think they painted it is this is welded, this is welded. Then let's move this out of the way. This is welded, and then I've not uncovered this yet, but that seems to be welded as well. So I don't know if it come like that from when they made it, and that's, you know, they just welded this piece onto this for the bottom where the wheel attaches, and that's how, you know, they built them, and then they painted it. When I started stripping the paint, it was black, and then there was purplish, bluish underneath. Here's the springs. They were not chromed, and there's still some. Still got to clean the insides up, but you can see a little bit of that blue there. See that? That was underneath the black paint, so I would assume that's kind of a primer. So what are you going to do now? Well, we're going to keep stripping this black off. Are you going to get it re-chromed? Nope. Here's why. We're building a 1974 chopper, or getting it road worthy. You build choppers and you want them to look vintage. Don't put all this nice chrome stuff on it. You can't get more 70s look than pitting and bare metal, and I mean, this is going to over time oxidize and look even more from the 70s. So I'm not buying new springer. I'm not that's nice and shiny and chrome. I'm not re-chroming this. I think the look of this is true to the 1970s. And so I want to keep it like that. I still have not figured out how these come out. They're not split in the middle, you know, like handlebar bushings where you knock one end out and knock the other end out. I cannot find any kit online that is for this. So this is indeed old. It's not even like a knockoff, like a Chinese Springer. I've looked on all the sites of just, you know, cheap Springers. Nothing's like that. Most of them, the threads go all the way through and you screw them here and then they go up. To be honest with you, if I can't find or make the pieces I need, we'll probably go that route. We'll just drill these holes here that are threaded all the way through. Then we can get the kit that comes with the new rods and here. But I'm still concerned about these. Even if we get new ones, are they going to fit in there? Are they going to waller around? They got to be good and tight, but they've got to slide up and down too. The bearings, I'm glad I went ahead and took the neck off. The bearings were bad. This bottom bearing has like sand and grit all in it. Hear that? The top one, again, was a Timken, and that's good. Now, I am replacing both of these. I'm cleaning this shaft up because I had to kind of wedge and beat that, hammer that one out. So I will be cleaning that up. It was dry as a bone, just like our wheel axle as well. And I'm going to leave these springs like this. I'm going to clean them up and leave them like that. I think just that raw metal as they oxidize, and that'll look awesome. The pipes, they cleaned up well. Again, I can see some of the chrome. These were chrome at one time, but over time they've just lost that shine. Maybe. I tried to polish this out with some good mothers. Didn't work. I did notice there's a provision here for a lollipop, which is a little washer welded onto a screw. This one has a hole too, but it doesn't have anything in it. Let's see, that was our front that was popping, so we might put some lollipops in these, and that might make it give just enough back pressure to stop that popping. Inner springs here as well, they turned out good, and you can see how that's bent from where it was not, you know, correct. And this one is got a little bit of it too. But once we get them in there, they'll straighten out once the springers are straight. I was going to bend it. I was going to bend it down rabbit ear style, but I was looking at it and I'm like, man, it's just too tall for a little bobber. Okay. Usually when you build a bobber with the short tail, the stubby end, shorter bars look better because of the short end. I found, you know, I've got bagoodles of bars. So I found this bar, kind of like beach bars. I think it was off of maybe a Road King. And I think that's going to work out good for it. It's already got a bend down. So all I've got to do really is just somehow bend these in to where they come in together a little bit more. But I want to put them on first and see how it is. I'd like to get them in pretty close, not uncomfortably close, but pretty close. All right, what else is going on here? Okay, so on the clutch side, it had this housing, which has 2 buttons and a switch. The switch was gone. The buttons didn't do anything. There's nothing ran to it. I found I was just kind of digging through all my crates back there, and it's like going down memory lane. I didn't realize how much like new stuff I had in there. So I found this chrome clutch handle and this as well. I found this I'm going to harvest the bolts out of and probably use this as well. So that would look really good. And the other side is already chromed there, so I'm going to leave that. I want to reuse those grips. They're nice, they're comfortable grips. They're just black grips. We put these grips on my dad's chopper. They look good, but I don't think he's going to like them. Your hands get sweaty in the summer and things start to slip and slide. There's, you know, there's not a lot of vibration on this bike, but you're going to feel it. So you know, the rubber grips, they're good, and then they make your hands feel soft, and on an Ironhead, that's a good deal. I moved this from out here to over here, and it fit really, really well. So they have the line coming from here. I just ran it inside this brace here. It comes out and comes up to here. Now on this one, they originally had it ran over top here, over this, and then to the side over here where it was mounted. And they had, for some reason, let me see if I can get it out. Yeah, they had the ignition wire from the points, or the digital doodabby. They had it ran over this way and up here. And I took this cover off here, which I needed to anyway to inspect and look. Looks like there's seals leaking back here we can fix. So I'm like, well, it's not supposed to run that way. So what I did was I just ran it this way underneath the starter and out here, which is, I believe, how it's supposed to run. It's out of the way of the chain, and the shifter right here, I can run it behind that shifter and it will in no way get in that chain. Then once I run it up here, I can disconnect it from the coil and I can shorten these wires so there's not, you know, 10 foot of wire hanging out. Okay, so I'm going to bring you in underneath this cover here. That's the inlet for the oil, and it was pointing straight up, and it was, the oil tube was coming out here, going all the way across and going down, and it would not make that turn to go back up since I moved that in the center and moved it down. So what I did was I took a 1/2-inch wrench in there, put some vice grips on the end, and I tightened that inlet to where it turns down. Then I was able to run the hose out the bottom around here with the frame, so it's not under the frame. Then it runs up here in the front and there. So a lot more natural flow, no big bend in it, and it's not up here in the way. They had this wire here. You see that? That's not good. I need to inspect what's under there. That might be why it sounds like it's kind of cutting out on us. Wonder what's under there. We'll have to look, because we're going to shorten this anyway, so we won't need all this. This will go up in here. So we will get into that. But they had it ran over here. Now this right here spins when the bike's running. So I wonder if that, you know, since it was ran over this, if it got over there and got into that. All right, so I just cut this sleeve back a little bit. And looking at the wires, it doesn't seem like it got into the wires. Okay, so that's good. But we won't need this much anymore because that'll run up in there. I'll probably, once I disconnect it, I'll run these wires right around here and up in there. I also clean these oil tubes off, and they were chrome underneath, and I'm pretty sure that's chrome under there too. So once we clean these up, that'll look good. I think I'm just going to leave these heads alone and not mess with them. I mean, I could. I mean, you can see where they spray painted, because they spray painted the wire too, silver. But maybe I'll pull the tank off and just kind of clean these up a little bit. Since we're going with kind of a bare metal look with the front end and the pipes, maybe those will look better, you know, just raw iron. We still have to take the back end off. I do want to pull the oil tank because we got to do that anyway to get it painted. And I noticed something when I was down here. This is the starter solenoid. It's separate from the starter. Most of them today are made on top of the starter or with the starter. This is not. It's separate. So you have the starter here. You have the starter solenoid here. So that's your trigger wire here that's running here. This goes to the starter. This goes straight to the battery. And if you look closely, this tube coming off the oil tank, the clamp for it it's actually touching this wire, this cable that runs straight to the battery. So if this here now touches anything metal around it, around the back or whatever, it's going to cause bad troubles, because this is straight to the battery. There's no main fuse for this right here. So we got to fix that anyway. Pull the tank, drop the oil, pull the tank off. All the hoses and stuff look good. I like this route a lot better. I like that it's up here in the middle, out of the way. It does have clearance, plenty, for this that spins. And it's not in a bind anywhere. It's got good curves to it. I like that. So when you're looking at it from the front, that really slimmed this side up quite a bit. My main concern is this. Finding these, and then once I do find those, what am I going to do about this? Because these are, you know, I guess plastic they feel. Maybe they were rubber at one time, but they feel plastic. It looks like they were clear at one time. And they go in there and they actually slide, you know, go up and down. I was able to get this disassembled. That's was catching as well. So both sides were bad. We got to do something about this. I don't know. I cannot find these anywhere. So if you know, educate me. Send me a link. Tell me where to get them. Because nothing I'm finding is going to work. So we still have a ton of things to do. Once we get the bars on and everything, I may leave this tank setting where it is, because with the frame up, the tank already has that good tilt up. I don't see a need in raising it. So I looked online for marketplace for some hardtails. They're pretty pricey. The ones I did find for a good deal, they were really extended out. So what we would have to do is divorce this transmission, then go with a 4-speed or a 5-speed out of an Evo or a shovel or pan or knuckle, anything like that. I think a 4-speed ratchet top would be great, but it goes back, so we could do a belt drive and all that on the other side. However, this is a 74. It's complete. It's running. We got to do a little bit of oil leak fixes, but I really don't want to chop it up. I think they look good like that, but I don't want to do that to this one. Maybe if it's a newer, you know, an 80s Evo or something like that, maybe. But these are kind of getting rare with the right side shift. So I'm going to leave that alone. So we got a ton of stuff to do. Exhausts look good. They're not cracked. They're not broken. I'm just going to clean them up and put them back in there. So all that's good. I'm not even going to mess with those bars. I'll just throw them in the stack of bars, and we're going to work on that one. And I think that's going to turn out a whole lot nicer. Thought about risers, but I'm like, no, I don't want to do really risers, because the front end doesn't have that much of a rake. It's just got tall springers on it. So I'm going to keep these, and this is kind of a, you know, a cool little cover. So I'm going to keep all that. I'm going to keep grinding on this and working on this, but I'm afraid the video has probably gotten long. You're tired of me rambling and talking. So we're definitely going to be doing a part 2, 3, 4, 5 till this rolls out beautiful, ready to ride and ready to go home to somebody that wants it. I'm not going to keep it. I bought it to build and for somebody to enjoy it. One more thing I forgot to mention is that ignition. Remember I told you we were going to change that ignition, and here's why. This ignition here gets floppy. It's awful close here. I had to undo this and move these wires down out of the way because they were rubbing up right up in here. They're all taped up. I don't like this at all. So here's my plans, if we have one. I am going to put an ignition switch, just a flip switch on and off, somewhere on this bike. Maybe up under the tank and the frame. I'm not sure. Maybe down here, maybe over here. Somewhere on the bike I want to put just a switch on. The headlights run bright. They're wired bright. That's good. They did good on that. The tail lights, they work. So just a switch on is all I need. A starter button. I'm going to put one on here. like I put on my dad's. I really like those. They're flat, they're smooth, they're easy to feel for. You don't have to search for it. And I like on the Harleys putting them right here. There's tons of room here on this brace. I'll drill the hole out, I'll insert it in there, and on the back you got tons of room to put your wires in, then run them up here and right down this neck. You'll never see them. I'll run them, tie them right into the other wires. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So a switch somewhere and then a push button. So we're going to be getting rid of all of this. As far as other wiring, you know, we've got all this. And I just want to, if anything, let's pull it out. Let's inspect it, since we're going to have the oil tank off and the battery out. And we're getting into the starter and trying to fix this bad leak down here. Let's get all this. This is just flopping around back here. So we can at least clean all this up. All right, folks, so we've come a long way. We've done quite a bit. We're digging into it, and there's really no turning back now. We got our hands full. I'm really hoping one of y'all comes through on the comments and says, oh, I know exactly what that springer is. Here's the kit for it. Here's what you do. Here's how you take the bushings out. Oh, that would be wonderful. If not, we're just going to have to figure it out on our own. This aircraft remover, I saw a plane the other day, but it won't spray enough to remove them. Thanks so much for hanging out in the shop with me today. And do me a favor, tell your mama now I said hi.